Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming along tonight for Amy and my talk. This talk is going to be on spatial computing and really sort of a bit of a look at how we've approached spatial computing over the last sort of 4 or 5 years. And obviously with the lead up to Vision Pro being something that we're currently prototyping for and looking forward to getting things onto device at some point in the future. I'll do a very quick about us. This isn't trying to pitch us and my company Contxtual. I'll talk through the eras of computing just as a very brief scene setter. And then I'll dive into a bit about spatial computing to really frame up how we see it and what the key components of it are. And obviously how we're moving forward into prototyping. And then with the prototyping aspect, I want to talk through the various stages that we use and obviously show you examples of how we do that. And a lot of this has been done prior to the launch of the Apple Vision Pro, so hopefully you'll see some of our thinking. Obviously not all of it panned out, but that's the sort of thing that we love exploring and looking at. So about us, this is probably more about me. But my history with Apple platforms is long and deep. So starting with the 2C and then the Mac SE30, and then of course going on from there. We have 25 years of the Bondi Blue iMac, I think, this week. So it was the first computer I bought with my own money. So it tells you a bit about how old I am. And then of course, I think I was one of the first to have an iPhone in August of 2007. Got one in from the US. And then we've really tracked the Apple platforms and designed and conduct user experience testing and research on those as they've come through. So as a UX consultancy, we do 3 things. We don't do any development, although I'll talk about prototype development a bit later. We do research, we do strategy and design for a whole bunch of clients. I won't go into that. But of course, we look at a whole range of different interfaces. So we did everything from ABC's first iPad app, a whole bunch of one of the big fours, iPhone banking, et cetera, et cetera. And we really love, we're a small consultancy, Yin and Rob are here tonight. Oh, sorry to embarrass you. It's not just the 3 of us, there's about 6 of us. And really what we like doing is looking at the new technologies coming down the pipe and not looking at it for technology's sake, but looking at it for how it can support the user needs and behaviors of the customers of our clients. So this whole next era of computing thing, obviously we started some time ago with the punch card, and this was this big device, right, that sat in a room and somebody walked in and had to be very technical on how to code a punch card, put it in the machine word, etc. And then we moved to, a bit later to the command line. And it was, again, very sort of foreign. We were going through a keyboard at the time, but it was not easy to understand. And then, of course, we got to the GUI and that the mouse and keyboard made it easier for people to interact with. This was a computer you could pick up and stick in, well, Steve pulled it out of a bag, but you could take it around a lot more easily than a PC at the time. Right? So that accessibility, and it's coming with us each time. The technology is getting closer and more natural to how we interact. The internet came along and opened up a whole new range of connectivity and content, and that really sort of started to shape the whole industry of human-computer interaction and usability and so on as we know it today, user experience. Of course, the iPhone came along and the device is similar to it, and we got another level where we could take it with us everywhere pretty much that we went. And we had another way of interacting with this device by touching its screen, scrolling and flicking and everything like that, swiping. And now we've got even closer, right? We've got devices that can actually detect what's going on inside our bodies and are literally with us all the time, except for those brief 15 minutes of charging every morning. So computing has really changed, and we're currently really in the mobile era, right? For the last 20 years or so, we've been focused on mobile user experience. But as that sort of transitions out, we were sort of looking about 4 or 5 years ago, what is that next era and where are things heading and what can we explore to be ahead of the curve on that? And we started to notice a lot about spatial computing. There's a great quote in a book called Infinite Retina by Robert Scoble. And it's a really good definition. I looked back at the original definition by Alan Greenwood in 1995, I think it was, but I think this one actually neatens it up together. And it's this whole concept of being able to see the world around us, the physical world around us, and to understand and incorporate digital content, assets and experiences into that physical world in a way that we've just never been able to do it before. And the other thing that it opens up is a whole different range of ways of interacting with these types of content in the physical world, and hopefully making it more natural and easier for people to engage and control that digital content in the physical world. So, there's a broad range of things here, and they're not equal because, computer vision is, sits under bits and so on. But these are some core components that we see. There's an element called the AR cloud, which is actually sort of the digital twin of the world. And that's very much in flow at the moment. We're seeing large companies doing things in mapping. We're seeing companies like Niantic specifically looking at AR cloud. There's actually an open source AR cloud approach out there as well. Then there's the AR glasses or headsets that we know. There's artificial intelligence as adding a layer to the experiences that you might have through these AR experiences, and computer vision to detect things out there in the world. And you might want to converse with your intelligent agent via conversational UI. Okay, and we expect that these intelligent agents, powered by artificial intelligence, will be a key component to interacting with these things in the future. And then there's also the digital items in the world, which are really sort of, can potentially control, right, using these interfaces and coordination with the machines. So we've had the opportunity to play in a range of this stuff. We've done usability testing out in the real world with people interacting with AR on their mobile phones, with artwork down in Bondi. We worked with Salesforce to conceptualize an AR app on the iPad. There's Rob in that shot. A number of years ago, and this sort of started, were on the path for engagement. This sort of triggered a lot of stuff to think about it. And what we started to do internally, so day to day we're a consultancy, right? We work for the companies, both big and small, but in our spare time, we've been thinking about this. And again, from a human-centered design perspective, what are the use cases that people that are not currently met, that might be met by these types of technologies? I gave a lecture at Sydney University this morning, and one of the questions were, why should we be led by technology? And my firm belief is, no, we shouldn't be led by technology, but we should be familiar with technology's capabilities so that when we understand those user needs and behaviours, we can support them with the right technology solution and to do that. So one of the things that we do internally is look at a whole bunch of use cases and how they might be supported. And sometimes these use cases feed into ways of conceptualizing this. And I think the exciting things about spatial computing is that we're still relatively early in this. While AR headsets have got a long history, the actual interaction design, as we know it from a consumer perspective, a mainstream perspective, is actually quite new. So to help us sort of go, okay, we've got all these things, how do they fit together? We sort of create sometimes these frameworks. And they're just very loose. They're just ideas that we put out into the world and go, hey, this is how we're thinking about something. So if somebody has an AR experience, they should stay off in the real world, right? We don't want to have a menu sticking in their face straight away. Maybe there are things like notifications that pop in. Maybe there are things like services which are ingrained in the operating system but might be called forward, whether that's something like being able to detect text in the real world and then read that out to you or highlight that. And then lenses are another layer. So we might have a history lens. I want to walk down the street and see different layers of history as an AR layer on this world. And then there might be dedicated applications. So that was a way of thinking about things. We think about the different experiences across different devices, so glasses or iPads or iPhones, and also the person's engagement with that. Are they doing it individually? Are they doing it as a shared experience in spatial computing? Or is there also a bystander there trying to understand what's going on between these two, and what do we want to tell them about that experience so they can potentially feel involved? As I said, AR specifically, AR headsets have a very long history in human-computer interaction. This was the sword of Damocles by Ivan Sunderland, created many years ago, 60s, 65, I think, from memory. If I had my notes, I'd know it. But this is where things really started to go, okay, how can we overlay computer-generated information into our visual field? And of course, one of the things that we like to do is track this technology. What headsets are out there, when did they come out, what has their progress been? Okay, so really the Microsoft HoloLens 1 was a true first consumer accessible AR experience. And while there are other AR devices out there, we see these as more spatial computing in that they can map that world that I was talking about. They're not just sticking a big screen in front of your face that maybe you've got as an output from your mobile phone or your desktop or something like that. And so we've gone through Microsoft, 2 phases of that. We've got the Magic Leap. The Magic Leap is probably our favorite headset that we've got in the office at the moment. And then things like we get to play around with Snap Spectacles and so on as well. And the Oculus Quest Pro, but that's that. And then we're also looking forward and trying to understand what is on the future state roadmaps of these companies as well, and what might be coming out. And of course, in June this year, we have Apple Vision Pro, but we'll come back to that. The other thing we try to do is to understand what the capabilities of these things are and why are they different. And again, these are assets that we simply create for us to better understand internally and to look at the different elements, right, of that determine, from our perspective, the user experience design. So this, for us, are the top 3 things. Firstly, whether it's an optical see-through, as in it's a piece of glass that I can see through and the AR image or spatial computing image is overlaid on that glass. So we have the Snap AR, we've got the HoloLens 2 and also the Magic Leap 1 and 2. And then you've got what we call video pass-through. So it's reflecting, it's taking in that real world via video cameras and displaying that to you. And of course, the Apple Vision Pro and also the Meta and the Vive as well. Then we look at those interaction inputs as well as the outputs. What are the things that people are using to interact with this device? And this is kind of, you can see through these various differences here that we're dealing with a great deal of diversity in the ways that people can interact. So the Oculus Quest Pro has 2 controllers, right? So people can be using 2 controllers right through to Apple Vision Pro where you don't need a controller at all, right? Field of view is another thing that's critical to UX design, obviously, for these headsets. Giving you what is your canvas as a designer that you can deal with so that people can see and interact with this content. We have the luxury of engaging the marvellous Tram, who is a PhD student at the University of Sydney, and we give Tram a topic each month, and she goes out and she looks through all the academic research about this topic. My background is originally in psychology and human-computer interaction, so I have a firm appreciation for the work that has gone before, especially in core HCI issues like augmented reality, because we are dealing with perception and a whole range of things that we can leverage the good work that has gone before, standing on the shoulders of giants. So each month we have a different topic that Tram looks at and comes back and reports on that. We go and do papers. In fact, we've got a paper coming up in an academic conference that we co-authored with the University of Sydney. And then the fun stuff is the prototyping, right? And again, this started many years ago. And we start off with the basics, as you always do. We're UX designers. What are the tools that are familiar to us? Well, these days it's Figma, right? And it's sketching and things like that. So we started off many years ago. How do we frame this stuff up? How do we get a picture of the real world and think about what sort of thing overlays on top of that? And we were taking iOS components and sticking them on, and we'd start off with stuff and we'd scratch that out and we'd go, okay, how might this play out? What makes sense? And so on. And so it's this constant iteration of sketching out, overlaying components, and then refining that and going through. And so you might end up with something like this, right? Which is a visual aspect of, you've got information on the road that might be showing you what your speed is and that you're currently doing over the speed limit. Can we interact with something like iOS reminders so that when I hit a geofence, there's a message that pops up in my field of view and says, hey, reminder, this thing that you wanted to buy, it's just over here, and that shop opens in 2 minutes. What are the contextual, there's a reason we called it ourselves that, what are the contextual aspects that we can incorporate to make an experience for people more usable and faster? Okay, and so how might then I interact with an intelligent agent, maybe something like Siri, to then get me directions to that place or whatever it might be. So we just sketched this stuff out, and then we thought, okay, well, how can we play with this a bit more? And we started looking at things like Adobe After Effects and just mocking little bits up. And again, it was like, how wide can we throw these use cases? And one of the things that we looked at was we saw all these different use cases and we were like, oh, what can tie this together? And we went, a wedding could tie this together. A wedding is a big event that people are really passionate about. And the planning of a wedding, you really want to understand what's going on, right? So we thought wedding planning might be a great thing. You can see the different colors. You can change the chairs to a different color. You can put different candlesticks. You can go, where's the band going to be? What happens when the sun sets? How does it all look? Let's configure the room around and stuff like that. Oh, I want to move that person. They've just broken up with that person, so we've got to move them around. All that sort of fun stuff. So this is sort of, there's a much broader scenario that we've created around this, but this was the early stuff that we were playing with. And then we had ones around photography at a wedding and how that might work in both from both the camera perspective or the photographer's perspective and the participants, and then how the couple might go back to that location in the years to come and see those photos embedded in the world around them and relive that experience. Then we also look, and I'm giving you a very broad sort of snapshot of things, right? So here's 2 experiences that we did just prototyping, looking at information in the world and how we might draw that information out of the world and act upon it, right? And we don't have the sound, sorry. But it's identified by computer vision, we pull that out, and then by voice, I might be able to interact and say, call that number or, save that to contacts or whatever. But those are 2 quite subtly different approaches, but then we can use ability to test those, right? And explore what people's preferences are and so on. The little blue dot is what we call a reticle, so it's showing us where the eye gaze is, where it tracks. Again, we're starting off with really basic components in Figma and then pulling them into something like After Effects. And then we end up with something like this. I think, do I have volume?
We can try again. It's working okay on mine anyway.
Let's see. No.
Roller coaster state.
Level 2.
Oh, that's it. Sorry. Ah, there. No, doesn't seem like it's coming through.
Hang on. Let's see. Oh, yeah, there it is. They're going to look at work. You're looking at focus mode. See what music's playing. Walk into
Arriving at work.
it tells you your focus mode's changing and you see the information that's relevant to you as you approach that contextual location. Okay? So these are little things that we try to explore. And we try to look at Apple's technology in a lot of the cases and how that might be, so this is, again, a while ago, how that might be incorporated into these types of experiences. This is another one, and this is there's a great project out there called ARIA by ARIA Research, a guy called Robert Yeasley, and they're just about to launch, or they were just on Channel 9 News. They're an AR headset that helps the blind, right? They use computer vision and echolocation to assist people who are blind to show them where items are. Oh, that's a kettle, it's this far away, and they use sound to show you how, where that object is and things like that. We tried to look at some Apple technologies, like
Closed door 6 meters away.
and look at how that
Pull or push handle. Swing. Door 3 meters away. Door 2 meters away. Door 1 meter away. Text. Holt and Hart. Level 2. Studio 206. Contextual. Door 45 centimeters away.
Then we looked at what other technologies does Apple use? Well, it uses face detection in photos, right? So how might we include that sort of thing into our sort of experience? Okay, so it detects that I'm a known person, but the in is maybe a new person.
Hi, Ian. Nice meeting you.
And then we get to the fun stuff, right? So we've been tracking this for a while. We've been looking at what things might evolve, but ultimately we want to play in a headset, right? And there's a lot going on. And obviously the Apple Vision Pro stuff is very new, but there's a whole range of stuff that's happening across these different devices. We've got a couple of pairs of the Snap Spectacles, which are really interesting to play with. We've got the HoloLens, and the Magic Leap 2 is really one of the headsets that we play with. Okay, but a lot of this stuff is new. And globally, we're looking around and connecting with people in the UX community who are starting to play with this. We're going to conferences. We were just in, Yin and I were just in Santa Clara at the Augmented Reality World Expo. We're going up to Singapore in a couple of weeks to present on design for augmented reality head-mounted displays. But it's a small community and it's in that beautiful stage of forming and trying to explore new ways of doing stuff and so on. And of course, there's a whole range of design guidelines. So, Design guidelines. Yin's preparing a marvelous presentation for a couple of weeks, which goes into a lot more detail about this. But I just wanted to touch on some of the things that we're exploring at a very high level to understand their perspective and different ways that the different AI headsets present this information. In much the same way as 15 years ago, we sort of compared, okay, what's iOS like versus Android versus Windows Phone and BlackBerry. Remember that? And different aspects of that. So, the windowing systems and the way that they're displayed, et cetera, et cetera. And then we get to play with these devices, right? And we've been lucky enough to be able to either get a device lent to us, or we bought the Magic Leap 1 for like $500 on some Whoop thing. And then the Magic Leap 2 for full price, which is significant and not different to an Apple Vision Pro headset cost. But for us, it's worth it. Now, I'll sort of flick out of that for a moment and I'll talk a little bit about our design pipeline. I did a talk at Web Direction South last year, which was really aimed at UX designers and the tools that we use in various ways. Now, I'm not saying this is the way or whatever. I'm just saying this is a way that we have been playing around. And so things like, again, we try to frame things so that we can understand them. What are the asset creation tools? We do a scan with Polycam. We might look at different assets and creating those in things like Luma AI and scanning objects, download assets from Sketchfab, etc., pull them into Blender, then push them out to Unity, or to Reality Composer, right? And to start to put these elements together. So Polycam to scan, obviously using, Room scan? What's the tech? Room plan. Different assets and scanning those with Luma AI, Sketchfab assets, etc. And then Shane does a great job of pulling all these in and cleaning them up. So again, we sort of just did a really simple model of how does our office look and how do we pull these things in. And we've been playing with Unity in terms of getting things into a headset. It's a good platform for Magic Leap, and then also playing with these obviously in Reality Composer as well. On the iPad, and getting these assets, this is essentially a digital twin of our office. So we can look around and see the various components and things like that. And again, it's just helping our understanding. One of the things we've been trying to do is really raise awareness about what this stuff is. And unfortunately, as we all know, because the Vision Pro has launched and we can't all use it, it's really tricky to get people to understand what this experience is like. So we've been inviting people into the office and we've created a bunch of really little prototypes to try and showcase different elements. This one's one we
Okay, here's a ball interacting with the floor and the wall.
Yeah, very exciting.
And the chair.
Sorry.
I went off into the ether. And then I can
but essentially,
put a table here.
Headset on. The first thing we want to show them is that digital assets understand that there's a floor and something can bounce off a wall.
Can interact
and we'll go and put a table there.
Digital
and we can
table, so digital ball interacting.
We can stack tables up right until they fall over. The physics is there. It understands the physical world. We can put a basketball hoop on the wall, and then we can shoot balls into it. And at that point, people just sort of stand there for a while. Just
ball.
I can stand there, and the Magic Leap will scan my arms. Okay, and then people can shoot a digital ball along my arms or into the hoop, right? So these devices are using LiDAR to scan the space. They understand the physical space. They build a model of it, then incorporate it into what you can do. And we've also been playing with other ideas. Again, looking at, okay, what's the utility in the real world? So, we're looking at how to embed AR content out there. And we came up with this really simple concept of, okay, well, as I'm about to leave the house, what are the things that I might need to do? And this concept's evolved a fair bit past this now, but there might be key aspects of information that we want to highlight before somebody leaves the house, or are important to them, I should say, not that we want. And then the other thing that we've been doing is trying to hook these experiences back into HomeKit, right? So Shane and Aidan done a great job. So we've got the Magic Leap 2 working with gaze. So I look at the light icon, I do the gesture, the HomeKit light turns on, and we're running back through push-cut to get that working in HomeKit. I look at the music panel. After a couple of seconds, it extends. I can then look at the play button with a gesture and start. Again, since obviously the Vision Pro's come out, we've been trying to simulate these experiences of what the future might be like in the Vision Pro. Now, the Vision Pro looks like it'll be much more amazing in terms of its eye gaze detection and the gesture detection and things like that, but we want to start playing with these things now. And it's even quite interesting looking at something like eye gaze and the period of time that you want to allow someone to look at something before it extends or expands or you interact with it is fascinating, because you get these different viewpoints and different ease of use around these types of experiences. Critical for us as user-centered, human-centered designers is obviously getting people in to use this stuff. So we've invited a range of people in to come and do a little usability testing, and that raises a whole bunch of issues as well, right? Because somebody's in a headset, how do you see what they're doing at that time? Oculus Pro, Quest Pro, we can get vision out, we can get a mirror out, same with the Magic Leap 2. It'll be really interesting for Apple Vision Pro how we conduct usability testing with this device, what we can get access to, because we know there's a whole range of privacy aspects around it. And then we get to prototyping the Apple Vision Pro. So Yin and I were we were there at the AWE conference in Santa Clara in June, and we expected that Dub would be on the next week, so we planned to stay there the next week. Yin got the golden ticket. I didn't get the golden ticket, unfortunately. I had to sit in the hotel room and log from there, or LinkedIn or whatever you do these days. But she got the opportunity to be at the launch. This is an amazing headset, and as you can see, all the work that we've been doing over the last couple of years, we've been looking forward to this device, okay? So we're very excited, and obviously Apple have pushed, and I'm sure you know from the developer website at Apple, there's a lot of great content there, all the videos from Dub, etc. There's a lot of information that we can draw upon and start to think about how we design for these experiences. And internally, we've sort of taken this approach where we've got a developer, one of our UX designers has over the last couple of years really started to get into Swift UI. So he's having a crack at building an app. We've got a relationship with a iOS developer, some of you might be familiar with, has been here before. He's working on a different version of an app, the same app for us, because we want to look at different approaches to how we might get there with Swift UI. And then we've got our prototyper who teaches at Sydney Uni and comes and helps us. He's been doing a lot in Unity, all that Magic Leap stuff. So he's going to look at the Unity plugin for Apple Vision Pro and how we can bring those assets across from what he's been doing. And then we've been playing with other tools as well, which are sort of, okay, once we get past the basics of the thing that we're doing, our app idea, sorry, I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of information about that, but how can we start to think about animation and different ways of presenting this type of stuff with Material X and all the animation capabilities that we will hopefully get. Oh, that was it, sorry. And then we're starting to do things where we go, okay, what's the experience that we're thinking about in Unity? How can we get it into a headset so we can play with it, and positioning and it can match to a surface. And we might want to do some interaction things around here, right? So what's the gaze? When does the thing pop up? We're emulating obviously a Vision Pro menu, and what can we do with the gesture and so on. So this is a lot of fun. There's a lot of hard work because obviously you've got to create all these assets from scratch and build these things.
Hey, Magic Leap.
We'll get. And of course, ultimately, we're playing with the simulator. So that's been huge for us. And even little things you'll see, I think in this one, where we're just playing around with, a flat 3D shape and a flat label on that window versus a 3D shape and a flat label versus a 3D shape and a label off the plane. So we're playing around with this stuff just to get a sense of it and to go, okay, what can that do? How can we engage with that? How can we scale stuff up or spin stuff around or whatever it might be? So for us at the moment, this is a great playground and we're exploring a whole bunch, even using the simulator and just getting around in the simulator, the different experiences that are obviously there by default is really informative for us. And as I mentioned, one of the questions that we're really keen to answer is can we do usability testing in AVP? You've no doubt seen all the posts that are starting to go up. David Smith and everyone talking about London and Munich, and our team's going up in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. We'll go up to Singapore. We're going up for a conference, but we'll be going along to the Vision Pro Developer Labs up there. So as you all know, there's not one in Sydney, and Singapore is one of our closest ones. So we're keen to get up there and give it a try. Sorry, I've taken a very long time, but it is really exciting phase of this industry. For those of you who were at the start of mobile, it feels the same. We've got big technology, low batteries, etc. But this stuff's going to improve very rapidly and create a whole new range of experiences for people. Thank you.
Thanks. Great. Do you want to take questions or?
Oh, sure. I can do questions over break if I don't know.
That's fine. No, there's no time pressure, but if you're happy to do it in the break, that's fine.
Either way.
Do we have questions?
Question. No. Okay.
Come and find Oliver in the break if you have any questions. But thanks.
Just a quick comment. Like the photos of the office with people playing around with the kit and actually prototyping things. That's exactly how it works in there. So if you walk into the office at Surrey Hills, you'll see people with gear on, playing around and trying out new things like.
Or Rob's trying to do serious work.
Yeah.
And certainly, if anyone wants to come to the office and play with Magic Leap, for example, just to get a sense of things, let me know. Come.
Well, thanks again.
Pleasure.
All right, we're going to take 5 or 10 minutes. So take a break, go to the bathroom if you need. There's some pizza left, and then we'll react with Amy's talk.
Well, before we get started, selfie. Always good to have some fun when you're talking. So, as Zach said, I am Amy. I'm here to talk about mirroring from one of these things, an iPhone, across to an Apple Watch, which is a really fun idea that, well, the idea's been around for a while. The implementation itself is, as you'll discover, a little bit touch and go. That is until this year with watchOS 10 and iOS 17. Standard social plugs, sort of more personal blog is cuteios.dev. Then there is my company, which is Delightful Apps. If you need to find me on Mastodon, it is amy@iosdev.space. I'm typically out cycling or I'm traveling somewhere in the world. I'm not actually based in Sydney. I am based down in Melbourne, but I just love traveling and getting out and meeting new people. So the talk, we're going to cover a little bit about the problem, some of the solutions that have cropped up so far, the issues with those solutions, a look at workout mirroring, and more specifically, all of the technical side of it, being how do we create a session, how do we send data, receive data, what happens if an update comes on the watch versus the phone, and some testing considerations as well. Questions, please hold until the end. I'm sure if anything comes through on Slack, Zach will put them forward so all of the online people can ask questions as well. Cool, okay, so the problem. This thing doesn't always talk to this thing in a reliable way, which, like, okay, for something like a weather app where you fetch the weather every so often and then you send it through from the phone to the watch, okay, it kind of makes a bit of sense to have it delayed, have the different platforms do the updates as needed. Then, yep, that's all pretty good to have a bit of delay in there. But if you're doing any kind of physical activity, so you're out cycling as I typically am, you'll find that what you see on your phone, as far as your speed, your heart rate, your power, your cadence, a big call out to Apple for actually making those available in HealthKit. That is really, really good. You want those to be exactly the same on the watch. Now, if there's, say, iOS and watchOS needing to communicate, they do so wirelessly, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, whatever is under the hood, then you need them to actually be doing it very, very regularly, and you need to be able to see everything in real time. So if your phone is saying you're going at 20 Ks, then your watch needs to be saying the same thing. Needs to be going, it has to say the same values. If you're, sorry, too many notifications coming through. I should have put a focus mode on. Anyway, my fault. You can have some fun. It's probably not going to show up on the actual notifications, even though screen mirroring is on, which is annoying. Every so often I leave that on and people just go, "Hi, Mum." Okay, distraction over. So here, communication needs to be in real time. Up until watchOS 10 and iOS 17, that wasn't a guarantee. Okay, so sending of data, yep, needs to happen quickly, needs to happen timely. We need to have the different devices being, the different devices need to have different roles. So they can't both be primary devices, they can't both be remote devices. One needs to have control and ownership and sends it to the other and back and forth in a little bit. So who's recording the data versus who's mirroring? And that's the problem we're trying to solve. watchOS 10, HealthKit, and all of the new workout mirroring does that really well. Solutions. What have people tried in the past? When I say people, what has Amy tried to build in the past and absolutely entirely failed to do? Watch connectivity. So if anyone has worked with watchOS and a companion iOS device, watch connectivity is pretty much the way in which you send data back and forth. And if that data doesn't need to be timely and can be at the discretion of the different targets and platforms, then watch connectivity works. Now, both the watch and the phone also are Bluetooth devices, meaning they can act as a sensor and also something that reads all of that. So what you can do is go, set up your phone as a sensor that is read by the watch and send data that way. Too much fiddly stuff and never reliable. Another weird one you can try is both have internet connections. Why don't you just send it up to the cloud and back down again? That one.
It might be faster than watch connectivity.
Ooh, those are fighting words. Right? For the record, and in case anyone over in Cupertino is watching, it was like, the comment was, CloudKit might be faster than watch connectivity. The fun we have. So, problem, potential solution, the issues. And we get back to this idea of timeliness, where you need them to be in sync, you need them to be in sync very, just all the time, the right data, and so forth. Bidirectional communication is in your watch sits on your wrist and picks up your heart rate. So you want to actually tell your phone about that. And the phone might have the Bluetooth connections for all of your power meter, your cadence meter, any other sensors you have, and be reading that and sending the data through to the watch as well. So all of this communication becomes really, really complex. And if you're trying to jury rig it on top of a platform that has its own constraints, well, you're at the mercy of what those platforms say. And if the platforms go, no, tough luck, because your activity's been just funneling data after 10 minutes at a rate of, 5 updates a second, which isn't much, but like a Bluetooth sensor, particularly when you're out cycling, will be pumping through data very, very quickly. So we now get to workout mirroring. Workout mirroring was introduced watchOS 10, iOS 17, and it's pretty much the solution provided by Apple where you can have all of the data communicate in real time between them. So, code. Unfortunately, don't have all of the pretty pictures and diagrams and animations that Oliver put together. Sorry. So you're going to have to put up with screenshots from Xcode. What we are doing here is you're taking your phone and you're going, I need to start this workout. What happens is you get a workout configuration. That configuration, you say, okay, your activity type is cycling, and then you go, is it indoor or outdoor? And then you're saying to an instance of HK Store that you want to start the watch app with the configuration. Now, because if you're out cycling, depending on the type of cycling you're doing, you always want to check, is the watch actually going to be there before you do all of this? Standard sort of safety checks. But if the watch is there, you tell it, okay, go ahead and do your thing. Also on the phone side, you want to be listening for the start of a workout session. Now, this is the mirrored session. So one of the quirks of this and of recording live workouts is all of it needs to happen on the watch. That is the only device that is giving you the option to start those particular workout sessions and create them and build them in real time. So I probably should have had this slide before the other one, because what happens is on your phone, you say, start this activity on the watch. The watch in its app delegate will get called and say, hey, please start a workout with this activity. And from it, you then need to go create the actual workout session. We then create a builder. The builder is what collects all of those metrics and does it in real time. So we get the associated workout builder for this session. We assign delegates because, hey, Objective-C is still a thing and HealthKit is all Objective-C with some nice wrappers around it, but it's still all Objective-C. Set up the delegates for the session and the builder, and also the data source, in this case being a live workout data source. And then we say to our newly created session, start mirroring to companion device. So that's the watch saying mirror to its companion, being the phone. And then we start the activity and we begin collecting all of our data. Back on the phone, we hopefully have called this ahead of time and assigned a closure to the value of set start workout handler on the store. And this is how the phone will get an instance of HK workout session that we then are able to use for the sending and receiving of data. All of this would have made a lot more sense with diagrams. I ran out of time, I'm sorry. But it's fun. Like actually trying to get your head around this stuff is a lot of fun. And I'll get to the more fun in a little bit. So we've now got a session. It is on the watch. It is the session that was created, and the builder as well, collecting all of your metrics on the watch. And on the phone, it is your mirrored session that allows your phone to actually send data back and forth. Session state. So particularly in any kind of workout, you want to be able to start and resume it as you go through. How this works is on the session, you're able to call things like pause, resume, and end activity, which will be used to put the state into paused, running, or finished, or stopped, or ended. One of those. How this then gets interpreted on each of the devices. So if you pause on the phone, your watch will get this particular delegate method called. If you pause on the watch, the phone gets this delegate method called, and you can go, is this going from a running to a paused? Okay, stop, pause all of my display and show that it is in a paused state. Is it going from pause to running? Similarly, we want to then resume the workout. Is it going from any state to an ended or a stopped state? In which case, you just want to finish the workout at that point. So that's how you do all of this management of the different states of the workout, which is pretty cool. Sending data. So as I've mentioned before, the reason we need a workout session on the phone as well as the watch is the workout session is what's going to be handling the sending of the data back and forth. So here I've got a struct, which is some raw data I'm wanting to send. That is a codable type, then encode it into a data object and send that data object to the remote session. It's the same call on either device because remote refers to its counterpart. Receiving data. Receiving data happens on the delegate again. Each of them will receive a delegate callback when data is sent from the other device. And first beta, this was a single data instance. Later betas, this is now an array. And being an array has its quirks as well, because what it means is that some of the data potentially can now be batched. What does batched mean? It means that you're potentially wanting to send 5, 10, however many new bits of data per second or per however long time interval, and it's all come in at once. So your code needs to be prepared to accept either one or many and just roll with it, because you're out of control, unfortunately. As amazing as this is, you're still at the whims of what iOS and watchOS are trying to tell you. Okay, watch updates. So before I said, okay, your phone, this one here, will be received, like it could be talking to your different Bluetooth sensors, but your watch is on your wrist getting your heart rate. Both of them are sources of input for particular values. So you want to be making sure that you send them to the appropriate counterpart and that all of your data is collected, because particularly for cyclists, every bit of data counts, which means you really want things to count at a sub-second time interval, whether you later decide to store it or not, or display it or not, it is going to say, okay, we want all of this data because it gives us really fine detailed metrics. So tangent. On your watch, it's recording your heart rate, and these come into the builder. Your builder will then call its delegate going, here are some new metric samples that have been recorded. Please go ahead and do with them what you want. In this case, it's typically just get all of the raw data and then send it through to the counterpart, being the phone. Similarly, if the workout builder gets an event rather than a sample, we can do the same. Now for the fun thing. None of this works on simulator. I should have thrown a feedback number in here because yes, I do have open feedback on it. Unfortunately, the response I got was, no, it doesn't work on simulator. I'm like, okay. What that means for me is more cycling, more fun, because if I want to actually test this over a sustained period of time, I need to actually be doing the physical activity. There's unfortunately no way around it. So that is one of the testing considerations, but in the end, it is all a good amount of fun. Hopefully all of this will make its way into the next version of my app. It should be out hopefully sometime in September. And that is it for the talk. Are there any questions?
Round of applause for Amy, everyone.
Yes, of course you've got a question.
Yeah. So I wonder, how does it work when user rejects workout permissions in HealthKit? Okay.
So there was the answer I gave my friend, which was, yeah, you know that doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Because HealthKit relies on permissions like, you need permission to read your heart rate. You need permission to read, say, power cadence if those are being recorded on the watch. All of that will, just do that. All of that will, like, if you don't have permissions, it just doesn't funnel that data through. So if you deny heart rate, you're not going to get heart rate recorded from the watch. You could very well still be wearing a Bluetooth heart rate monitor, in which case the phone is probably going to be paired to it. But yeah, without the actual permissions there in from HealthKit, you will not be getting the data. That is, I believe, by design. It is the correct design because you don't want to be giving away any health information. Privacy is a good thing, and we respect people's privacy. Yes?
The batch data that comes through, is that similar to location services where you then have to start looking at going, hey, this is quite stale, I'm going to ignore it. There's similar timestamps whenever you have to go, throw, keep.
Yes.
Okay.
And that is entirely the responsibility of the app implementing it. The platforms will not make that decision for you.
Question. Yeah. So since the healthcare data is recorded on the Apple Watch in the first place, is there a way that just display that data from Apple Watch without sending to iPhone and back syncing to Apple Watch?
Yes, and that has been possible for many years. So all of the functionality around recording an activity on the watch and display it on the watch has been there for a while and has remained the same. What has been introduced with WatchOS 10 is the ability to mirror the data between the two devices.
What's going to happen if you turn off Wi-Fi and Bluetooth? Is it still working even though you granted permissions?
okay, so you granted permissions, but there's no way for the communication to happen. So this is why I said you need to check for there being a companion watch when you start everything on your phone. You need to check that the watch is paired and reachable. If it's not, then nothing will work. So you just don't go through that process. If there is, then yep, it's going to be good.
Okay. So what's the benefit of using that over watch connectivity, even though watch connectivity is?
Watch connectivity is not guaranteed. And I imagine it's fairly similar under the hood. I do not know. Don't quote me on that. But having it as part of session and store in HealthKit means you're able to create that without doing all of the overhead and boilerplate yourself.
So all the heart rate that's being collected on Apple Watch is being transmitted to iOS immediately?
Not immediately.
All right.
You transmit it when you want. So when the builder gets all of those values, all of those samples, you then have the option of sending that data through to your phone. If you don't do that, then it won't appear there. It'll only sort of appear when you finish the activity, and the activity as a whole is synced via Apple Health.
All right, okay.
And how can you know if I'm cycling or I'm just walking or I'm cycling with electric bike or for example?
So the question was, how do you know what the activity type is and what's going on? So this is why when you establish the connection, you provide it a configuration. And that configuration in the instance of the app I'm building will be cycling. So I explicitly set that. And then I also look at, is it an activity outdoors or indoors, which is something I set from the UI. So all of that is configured from the app itself. What isn't configured, and I think is probably more what you're trying to ask, is what happens if you're outside and your watch then detects, okay, you're now doing a cycling activity. Does workout mirroring mean that your phone and whatever apps on that will suddenly become aware of it? Unfortunately not. Your phone, there is not that part of it.
Yeah.
There's no idea of this is your default cycling app to launch when you do this. Maybe there's a feedback there to send through to Apple on it. It might be a good idea. A lot of complexity around it though, just from my understanding of the problem space.
Do you have any preference that the user starts the workout from the watch or the phone, or it makes no difference?
It makes no difference. The way I'm thinking through it at the moment, particularly with Bluetooth connections for power and cadence, having those configured and sort of established on the phone is a lot easier than doing it on the watch. That's my current thinking. I still need to play around and experiment with it a bit more before I'm really narrow it down. But for me, I would start everything on here, put this onto the handlebar, even though I've still got the watch. But once that connection happens and the activity is started, the watch app will be present and running. So you don't then need to do a corresponding action on your watch.
Quick one.
Yep.
I presume that if you're running the thing and then your watch runs out of battery or whatever, you end up with the data stream, you get one of those state changes to stopped or finished or whatever it is to go, hey, it's gone. And it gives you whatever data was there until it ran out of power.
I do not know. I have not tested it. I want to now go and test it. If anyone is watching this and wants to jump on a test flight build and say, do an Everesting for me, that could be a very fun thing to try because it would test out, okay, how long is the phone going to last? Is it as long as an Apple Watch Ultra? Is it as long as a Series 6 Apple Watch or something like that? What are the limits and what's the behavior there? I think I've been nerd-sliked. Damn you.
Yeah, just a quick question.
Sure.
Can you open the session like 7 days a week, 24 hours per day, just constantly get updated for the heart rate, that kind of thing?
Okay, so
Session limit?
I'm not sure, so I'll try to rephrase your question to understand it a bit better.
Yeah.
You're wondering, can I create a long-running session that would potentially go for the duration of the watch's battery while it's on your wrist and use that to do continuous heart rate or something like that? I don't know. It's a really good question. I like the question, I like the thinking because it really sort of goes, well, what can you do with this? Yeah. Sorry, I don't have a real answer there.
Sorry,
Exactly.
tangent.
I've been.
Go ahead.
I was going to add to that. You could, at least as of a few years ago, I don't know about using this new system, but you used to be able to run a workout for as long as you want and just continually collect heart rate data. And yes, you probably could use that to run an app in the background and continually do things. But you will hit, obviously, battery limitations and you may run into trouble with that review. But if it was for your own testing purpose.
And there's also extended runtime sessions that you can use, and it's a different. If you're not running workout, you're running therapy session or mindfulness session. So I think you can also have an access to sensors in the background, and it's not going to be as heavy as a workout session. So so they released API 3 years ago. Yeah, for that. So you can some apps they can run up to an hour, and depends how you classify it. But there's exercise, stretching, or like lightweight exercising. You can try with that. Yeah.
Okay.
It might be a tangent, but I mean, kind of makes sense before this, after what we talked about. So the workout app itself kind of asks you when you stop moving, that is the workout over. Is it also available via the API in your app, or how is it that handled?
Yeah, we had a similar question before around your app doing an activity and your watch suddenly starts to guess, are you running, are you walking, are you cycling, are you swimming? Unfortunately not, not to my knowledge anyway, because when you start the activity, you're explicitly saying this is cycling in my case, or this is running or something like that. Yeah.
But I think it's possible with core motion. You can classify your activity. If
Yeah.
you're cycling, if you're sitting, so you can use that. It's not going to be part of.
Yeah, but you still need to actually, when you start the workout itself, say what it is.
Yeah. But based on the callbacks, you can say, okay, even though I'm running workout, I'm going to collect the callbacks from core motion that
you can
driving.
always, you can always collect whatever metrics you want, but you are classifying the activity at the start.
Yes.
So does it mean that, for example, if you see that the heart rate is dropping like 30%, then you kind of ask the user, hey, are you still cycling?
And that's entirely at the app's discretion. You can go, like one of the things cycling apps do is if you're stopped at lights, the app will go, okay, I'm just going to pause this activity because there's no motion. And then once I've determined you are moving again, say speed over a given time period, then it will resume the session.
Break up the sampling rate after you.
Yeah.
I think on that timeout thing, I believe when they did the promotional stuff about the Ultra, part of that was about that they were talking about ultramarathon type people who could run for like a day and a half and get a complete recording. So if there is a limit, it's pretty generous for most things.
It seems like the type of thing to be picked up at an app review level, not at a technical level, because you're right, you can't really distinguish between this is a genuine hike that goes for 36 hours or something crazy versus someone abusing the system. Yeah.
Good talk about.
Okay, I think
one more. Sorry.
You've been very patient, Zach.
Yeah. So going back to the data batching, you mentioned that was possible as a beta 2 or whatever. Are you batching the data and sending it across, or does the system decide to batch the data suddenly? How does that work?
I believe it's the system.
Okay.
Because when you're sending data to the session, you are sending a single data instance.
Right.
Whether that appears on the companion device as a single value in an array or many is up to the system's discretion.
And have you noticed much of a delay, or is it still pretty real time?
Pretty real time, but yeah, I still need to do a lot of testing, and September's a month away.
Not wrong.
Probably some power efficiency stuff to power transmitters and power down.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Amy. That was great. All right. Thanks, everyone. That's all we've got for you tonight. Thanks for coming. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll catch you next month. So get home safely. Thanks.